All right, everyone, good morning. We're going to get started here. Good morning to you all, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Tom Schmidt, and I do see many people out here today that I know pretty well. But I also see a number of new faces. And I just wanted to say that if you don't know me, it's probably because I've pretty much become the Billy Carter of co-founders. I think you're all well aware of my brother Pete Schmidt. You all love and adore him. Well, Pete and I founded Right Reason Technologies 11 years ago. And if you don't know me, I'm just the other Schmidt. But today, I do have the privilege of welcoming you to the second annual Right Reason Technologies Conference. Thank you. It does mean a lot. For our school district partners, our BOCES partners, welcome. And for those who are here just to learn a little bit more about what Right Reason Technologies is about, that's great. Thank you. And also, there might be a number here today who just want to discuss and share some of the latest happenings in education and what's going on. Regardless of your reason for being here, sincerely, thank you. We have a very, very ambitious schedule today. We're going to be discussing things such as APPR and SLO solutions, some things with Common Core assessments, e-learning, a lot of different things we're going to be tackling. It's ambitious, but I know that we can do it. Now, if we were today discussing something like the Olympics or why it's so difficult for someone to stay on the pommel horse when they're under pressure, I was a former gymnast, so I could probably talk pretty eloquently about that. Or as a sports aficionado, if we were talking about why my Mets seem to crumble in the second half of every year, I could probably stand up here a long time and talk your ear off. But today is about education. And because of that, I think I'll do what has pretty much become the norm in the Right Reason Technologies office. I say good morning, and then I hand it off to the wonderful teammates and experts and education leaders within Right Reason and the school districts. You see, I've learned that in some ways, sometimes wisdom is knowing when to hand over the mic to the expert. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'd like to introduce our first expert of the day. Our keynote speaker is Mr. William Brennan. Now, I got to give you a little plug. William Brennan is, for those who don't know, the Director of Information Technology at Farmingdale High School, but he's also so much more than that. From science teacher to school administrator, Bill has really touched students all the way, positively influenced, from middle school all the way to higher education. And many of you probably know Bill as the co-creator of School Leadership 2.0, which for those who don't know, it's a professional development school community which really engages school leaders quite literally across the globe. So for my fellow team members at Right Reason, I do want to welcome you all. Anthony always says we have to have fun or it's not worth doing. So it will be collaborative, it will be informative, and please join me collectively to welcome Mr. William Brennan.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this working okay? Wonderful. Okay. I'm going to close this down in just a second, but this is something we're going to talk about this morning. This is an application known as Hootsuite. We're going to spend some time talking about the S word today. That S word is social media. So I just want to show you this to you just so that you're aware as we go into this. And today there's actually a hashtag that we're following called RRT12. We'll talk about what a hashtag is, what it means to us as teachers, as administrators, and to kids. Let me get into that. So who's in this morning from out of town? I know there's some people, perhaps from Greece. Did they make it from New York? Welcome. The traffic is always interesting in Long Island at this time of day. You know that. So today I'm here to speak to you, with you, about this topic of blended learning. And I think it's important. You know, there's a lot of talk about blended learning for kids, and how it's using technology to alter the way we deliver instruction, the way we personalize instruction. But we're going to talk today that it's really not just for kids. We're going to talk about a whole different idea to learning. I'll take you through a bit of a journey, my own journey, that is, in learning. I want to share something interesting. This morning I was having a conversation with Jeremiah. I asked him before if we can comment on this, and we just happened to touch base and started talking, and he said something funny. He said, at one point I thought, an engineer was a person that drove a train. And I said, you're kidding me. I said, I used to think the same exact thing for the longest time. I didn't realize, probably, I won't tell you until when I realized that it wasn't. That's an interesting thing here. And I hope through the talk today, there's a certain way that kids discover the context of situations. There's a certain journey that they go on with technology and learning. The internet has greatly facilitated that, amplified it, made it an amazing catalyst. And I hope to share some of that with you today. Most conferences, sometimes people say, please turn off your electronic devices. I'm going to ask you not to. If you have a laptop, take it out. If you have an iPad, take it out. If you have a phone, take it out. I encourage you to back channel text, talk to each other, tweet, do whatever you want. I think it's important. And if you are on Twitter, please do try to use the hashtag RRT12. So I love the title of this conference, Leading and Exceeding in the Age of Compliance. How many of you right now are writing slows? I know next week I'm going to be writing about 20 of them. So I live in your world. You're writing right now? I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. 20. Yeah, no, I'm fortunate. I supervise the technology education and business education departments. I'm not a principal doing this but anyhow. So this age of compliance, is this not one of the most interesting times? I don't know what other word to put to it, but there's certainly, there's the elephant in the room here, and we can't ignore that. There's no question. Today I'm going to talk about technology solutions. We're going to talk about social media. We're going to talk about a whole different way of learning. And I'm going to try to help explain that as a way of a relationship through social capital that we create online in virtual communities. And the kids are doing it today. Nobody's teaching them. So, we are in this age of compliance is what I was trying to point out here. And I find this interesting, this comic. Somehow I stumbled this on my website one day. My good friend Mike Keeney shared it with me. And, quite honestly, I think blended learning and what Right Reason Technologies is doing here is trying to personalize, individualize education for kids. And we're talking about kids, but we're also talking about teachers and administrators this morning. And clearly you get this. That elephant isn't going to excel like the monkey might, or the seal, or perhaps the dog. I don't know how the penguin's going to make out. And there's this other thing going on. There's this revolution that's been going on for a while with technology. And here, this is a comment of a child walking in the first day of school saying, hey, anybody that follows me on Twitter, they already know what I did this summer. The communication channels have changed. For almost my entire life, I've been trying to figure out, there is no silver bullet. Let's face it, there is no silver bullet. Let's try to understand the essence of what this means to us, though, in education. And I want to just point out here, the London Olympics. 40 pounds ago, I was a college swimmer. And I love swimming. Michael Phelps, by the way, was a terrible student. They wanted to probably put him on all the prescription drugs. This kid doesn't belong in school. He's misbehaving. You know how that goes. But, he's doing some pretty good stuff these days. Social media, funny thing that I can't stand about it sometimes is this. I can go look at my feed shortly. What am I going to discover? I'm going to discover who won the race over in London right now because the race is going on. So it's this, you got to know not to look sometimes, and that can be frustrating. And, there's just so much information coming at us from all these different streams, and I hope to maybe speak to you today about how do we manage that? How do we make use of that? That shouldn't have come up yet. I want to introduce you. I have a test, okay? I wanted to ask you, or explain to you really, what one of my least favorite words are in the entire world. I'll tell you why. It's not an acronym like SLOW or APPR, but it is in fact that word that was just up there, technology. It's in my title. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology for School District. Technology has in many ways helped me be a learner. It's helped me in so many ways. Why would I be saying this right now? Generally speaking, this is what I've been exposed to in my life. I went to Bayview Elementary School. Anybody from West Islip? Okay. That's right. That's right. You were principal in West Islip. Went to Bayview Elementary School in 1986. This is third grade. We moved from Seaford to West Islip. I was there third grade to sixth grade to 89. And I used to remember going to the computer lab to play Oregon Trail, to do math classes and stuff like that. I mean, it was a great place. You got up out of your classroom, you walked down to a computer lab, and you played a game for 40 minutes. Then I went off to Beach Street Middle School, and I enrolled in a class. I took a computer class called keyboarding. I learned how to type. Who's taking that class? Right? Typing. And then I went off to West Islip High School, and West Islip High School, my guidance counselors encouraged me, hey, why don't you take a computer class here or there? So I probably took 2 or 3 classes in computers. And again, it was a place that I went. Again, I graduated high school in the year 1995. By the way, I'm not a digital native. I mean, you probably know that. I don't even make that cut. I'm considered old in that realm. And then I went off to Marist College for 4 years. And, it's funny. The internet didn't mean anything to me in college. Right? It did not mean anything to me. It's like, okay, I didn't have a cell phone. I just didn't. It was different. So I asked the question, what in God's name happened to the future? Because growing up as a kid, I was promised a lot of stuff, as were you. Okay? It was in my toys. By now, we would have been having this conference on some sort of satellite, right? I would have flown here in my jetpack, right? What else did the Jetsons tell you? I mean, it was in our toys. It was in the movies. Our teachers were talking about it. Space, the next frontier. All this stuff is supposed to happen. And so I really do, what exactly happened? What happened to the future? Clearly it's not here. Today, again, I've always been searching for the essence of this experience. What should that T word do for us? Did it make anybody more productive? Who's got a lot more work these days? It's going to solve all your problems. We're never going to have paper anymore. I print more paper than ever before. So what is the meaning of all this? What are we supposed to do with this? Well, I was on a search for greater meaning. So I chose to go off and get my doctorate, okay? I'm very close to, hopefully I just paid my final bill. Hopefully. A lot of things have to happen there for that. I just finished researching, studying 13 principals around the country who are leading-edge principals in the area of social media and using social media to learn in what they call communities of practice. Some people refer to these as affinity spaces. Some refer to them as creation spaces. And we're going to talk a little bit about that research. I was trying to connect it to this experience, to not only their learning, but how do you folks bring this back into the organization? How do you bring that knowledge that you've acquired in these spaces, the relationships you create with people, how do you bring that in? How do you create a new culture of learning using social media? Again, I don't like using a technology word. Simply because of something here that Milton Chen had said in 2004. Many of you might have been at that conference. I remember attending it. I believe it was sponsored by Nassau BOCES. It was at the Aviation Center. And I remember him saying that. That stuck with me, and it will never, ever leave me. And it kind of gets amplified or renewed every single day in my life. And let me show you why. My son, by the way, I went to bed at 12:45 last night, woke up at 3:45 and said, "Daddy, I want to do a puzzle." He's now almost 4. I'm sorry. This is a couple years ago. Mommy wasn't home at this time. Daddy said, all right, let's see if Liam in 4 or 5 months can make that one step we have in our house.
Go ahead. You can do it. Oops.
Sorry, I'm blocking.
Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Yeah. Yeah, come on. Come on. Come to Daddy. Come to Daddy. Come on.
I'm going to hang a carrot in a second. You'll see. You know? Okay, here comes the carrot.
Come on, Liam.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit just in the interest of time here. Because there's a lot of that one step and there's a lot of drool. Okay. Now, mind you, I'm about to hand my son a BlackBerry. Sure enough, if I handed him the iPad or the iPhone, he would have done a backflip to get up here. That retrograde technology is just, yeah, that's what I had at the time.
Yeah, he's going to try a trick.
I want you to just note how he picks this thing up.
Come on.
Come on, man. Come on, buddy.
Come here. Come here.
I think he gets it too. There we go. He's making progress.
Yeah.
He did it. He did it. What do you find that's interesting here?
What are you doing?
See the drool? Just went down. I can't explain this. I'm hoping it means that Daddy's not on his phone too much, and he's been watching me. What is this thing? Okay. It's cute. It's, you know, I try to approach what I do in education through this lens, that this is the world that Liam is entering, that Lyle is entering, that, you know, it's just, that's what they're coming into. I remember going to the West Islip Public Library, and my style was to photocopy Encyclopedia Britannica, nickel, and highlight the heck out of it, and, you know, I never plagiarized. I mean, but, you know, it was just, that's what I did. What else were we supposed to do, you know? So again, I can't share this enough. I think this is pretty powerful, and if we can enter education in our classrooms every day, or as school leaders every day, speaking with our principals or directors and everybody else, the board, with this in mind, and again, I want to just go back to my second slide, the age of compliance. I get it. I totally do. So I just want you to maybe, as we go through this journey, we just want to take a couple things away. But the funny thing is this. It's not, the iPhone today or the iPad today is not something that's going to motivate my kid in a classroom. It's just not. What is the essence of this thing? What is the essence of the tools that Right Reason Technology can share? And I would argue that it has to do with personalization. It has to do with providing a new experience, a new learning experience. But if you put a tree up there and you ask an elephant and a penguin and a monkey to climb it, it's not fair. Just like it wasn't fair for me to take a multiple choice test for 12 years when I really was not good at doing that. And it took me until my junior year in college to realize that. It wasn't the way I could express my knowledge, or what I knew. I'm going to show you, I love this video. How many of you like The Office? Isn't it great? As we watch this, and we think about what we're talking about today and teachers in terms of motivation and stuff like that, let's check this out.
Listen up. Come to the center of the room, please. This is a Schrute buck. When you have done something good, you will receive 1 Schrute buck. $1,000 Schrute bucks equals an extra 5 minutes for lunch.
What is the cash value of a Schrute buck?
Excellent question, Pam. 1/100th of a cent.
So 10,000 of your dollars is worth 1 real dollar?
Just zip your lid. Good. Now, let us discuss precipitation. Stanley, when rainfall occurs, does it usually fall in a liquid, solid, or gaseous state?
Liquid.
Very good. You have earned 1 Schrute buck.
I don't want it.
Then you have been deducted 50 Schrute bucks.
100.
Don't you want to earn Schrute bucks?
No. In fact, I'll give you $1 billion Stanley Nickels if you never talk to me again.
It's a ratio of Stanley Nickels to Schrute bucks.
The same as the ratio of unicorns to leprechauns.
Okay.
That's it. Class is canceled. Everybody out.
No, wait. What are you doing?
I'm punishing them.
No. Class is not canceled.
That video's all over YouTube. It's also posted on School Leadership 2.0, which I'll show you in a little bit. You know, I think that's common. We kind of see that in some way, especially with our students, but also with our teachers. I mean, how do we, this is what I struggle with. How do we move beyond that concept of, you know, I'm going to go to that class, or I'm going to take that course that you're offering simply because it's going to move me up the scale? Or how do we, you know, just establish that culture, if you will, that situation where there's just a passion, there's an interest for learning, and we're not pushing it down people's throats. I know that's very difficult today. The principles that I'm speaking with in my study, that's one of the most interesting findings that or things that they've shared so far. And I've decided to kind of throw this in here. This is where I've arrived so far with my study at Fordham. And how do principals, participation in communities? Now, we're sitting here today in a conference. Last night, I sat at a small round table with some people, and we established a relationship. We exchanged some knowledge. We met. We even exchanged some cards. And we may continue a conversation down the road. But I'll tell you that some of the best learning that I have had has been in these communities of practice that are virtual form, with people I will have never met in my entire life. And I've formed these weak ties, these little relationships with these people that will ultimately mean something down the road for me, and I'll tell you how it has already. But when principals or teachers or any person for that matter participates in virtual communities of practice, spaces, using social media, it creates connections, relationships, a community context. You get exposed to resources. There's almost a serendipitous learning experience that occurs. There's a journey of discovery that you never could have had before. And that's now tied into what I'm trying to tie that into as a theoretical framework for this study is social capital. I mean, I have developed social capital with people that I will never, ever meet, simply through Twitter, simply through Facebook. I've moved from a stock of knowledge to knowledge flows, where the smartest people in the world are sharing information with me. They're also sharing with a lot of other people. But what does that do? What happens when a principal participates in these spaces? Well, they establish these relationships. Perhaps, and these are some of the findings that I'm still working on, it improves an increase in innovation. Well, if you're sharing new ideas with teachers that you wouldn't have just gotten from within your building, you're going out to the edge of your learning experience and bringing that into your organization, perhaps there's new ideas coming in. There's much easier ways to share knowledge. I mean, I've still to this day see the memo going out in the mailbox, the Monday memo, or the Friday something. There's always a fancy name for it. And a lot of times it's an email. But what happens if it's not just on Monday? What happens if it's not just on Friday? What happens when it's a continuous stream? Because you're participating in these communities of practice, and maybe you're studying Common Core like never before, and you've just linked up with 15 or 20 of the brightest people in Common Core. And now, a click of a button, you're sharing those resources with your teachers on a continual basis. Or, for that matter, perhaps they subscribe to what you're learning. We'll talk about that in a second. So I want to just take a minute, about 5 minutes actually. Some of the fine folks from Right Reason Tech are going to float around and kind of facilitate this check-in with you. We are going to talk about that S word, social media. There's sometimes a very bad connotation with that in our school systems. How many would you agree with that? If we could, at your tables, I just want to get your perspective on that. Brainstorm, have a little talk. What does it mean to you as a district, as a person in your district, as an educator in your district? What do you think about it? You have the empty wagon? You have the wagon full? Just a chat. We'll take about 5 minutes to do that, please. Anything that comes to mind? Okay, why don't we get ready to report back for a second. Do we have any volunteers at the table? If not, I'll put our Right Reason Tech people on the spot. Just quickly, perhaps a few of your thoughts, your findings, some of your concerns, your ideas. Why don't we start over here?
I'd love to start. Well, my group came up with a lot of concerns with the use of this, technology, crazy social media. I'll just read through some of them. One is that it represents a time off task as opposed to a time engaged in education. There's also a lot of danger and fear. We're afraid of what technology can do. We're afraid from a safety standpoint with some of the social media and just the fear of how to use it. The other thing that was brought up here was from a teacher's perspective, it's tough when you're not the smartest person in the room, so the students will use the latest technologies and sometimes they know more than the teacher, so that's a problem. There are security issues that come up. Sometimes technology, as opposed to Bill saying use it here, is seen as a disruption or a distraction. If I was standing in front of them and I started doing things, I immediately think it was about, my presentation has to be about me, not about what else is going on. And so there's some of that. There's also the fear of cheating, and some of the reticence of using or embracing technology is the exposure, because whatever you put in the world of media, of technology, lasts forever. So that's what our group came up with.
Great, thank you.
I'm listening to that and I'm thinking about the list that our group just made, which took me to a completely different place. And Angelica and I went a couple months ago to a conference sponsored by Verizon, and there was this young guy, 22?
Yeah,
Great.
if that.
Travis somebody.
Travis.
And he was talking about, he started his own company at college, he started his own company because he had such a uninspiring experience in his K-12 education, because the schools were lagging so far behind what he did every day with these tools that are around, these ways of looking at information. And whereas I think probably every school district agrees with those concerns, somehow we have to find a bridge.
I absolutely love my job. I love working with kids, I love schools, I love the people I work with, but I gotta tell you, some days I go in and I'm just saying to myself, what the heck am I doing? Is this what I'm about? Is this what we're about? We're testing the way we're doing this? Granted, I still have to pay my mortgage, but so do we all. It's right. I'd love to meet that guy, Travis.
He's pretty interesting.
Thank you.
Does anybody know his name?
Yeah.
Or the name of his
He was just on one. It's iSchool.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll find that out. Great. Thank you. Bob.
Here we go. Thanks.
Let's keep it under 30 seconds.
So what it really comes down to is, the first time that something is posted that it shouldn't be, the first time that there's an issue. So there's a little bit of a concern there, but the drive to actually do this, how do you get around those hurdles? How do you get over those hurdles when they do come for the first time? Because once you've handled that situation, then obviously, anything that comes after that, everybody's pretty good with managing the situation and not letting that impede the progress of the other 95% of the folks that are doing the right thing.
Concern and fear so far have shown up twice. Ken, did you want to?
I think building on what Bob's group had said, similarly, there are concerns. We do have examples of schools that have red and green zones being set up now of where students can use their technology freely and where they cannot. We had concerns over devices being stolen and then taking up the majority of an administrator's day. As the director of science, this is frustrating, and it's something that Bill and I had spoken about with just a piece of technology like a wristwatch having one function. And now, our students come in with these for a science lab. They have a video camera, a stopwatch, all these tools, a calculator at their fingers that we're preventing them from using.
It's a great point, and I actually, you probably all know that I borrowed that idea from Sir Kenneth Robinson when he spoke about that, is that, he talks about kids or people that are part of this digital, the digital natives. They don't believe in these single function devices that they wear on their wrist. Although the Jetsons would have told us that would have been different by now. We're going to talk a little bit about the power of what's on your waist, what's in your pocket, and what do we do about that? I mean, thank you, Ken. This table.
We're from Greece, New York, and we just about 2 weeks ago got our board to unanimously approve, just as you mentioned, a plan to open up mobile devices to all the students in the district. And it took about a year to get them there, but what I found to really kind of, and it talks or touches on this a little here, is that those devices that are on our belt clips or whatever really aren't, this technology isn't doing anything new. Collaboration is not new. Twitter is collaboration. A lot of the Google Maps is not new. We've had spy satellites for 20 years. There are things that now we have access to at our fingertips. That's the only new thing. And once the board kind of got that, we're not bringing new stuff into the building, we're just bringing the access to it more readily available to the kids, that's kind of what brought that anxiety level down. So
thank you for sharing that. That's a great point. It's funny, as a school district now, Farmingdale right now, we're just doing a big wireless project because we've adopted the idea that, it's about the access. It's exactly what you just talked about. It's about providing the highway, the channel for you to get there. And you know this, the resources are no longer on our network. I don't want anything on the network. I want, everything off there. This group on the report? Are we going to do a combined BOCES report? These are all my credits.
Yes, we got two.
Yes, Easton, NASA, Red Western.
Okay. We talked about cheating,
yeah.
And I was in a district and we would talk about how they took the PISA and they're doing NWEA and all these countries that are supposedly doing so much better than we are. But they talk about assessments in Denmark. When you go to graduate from high school, you're presented with a real-life challenge, and you're given access to all the information you need to do that challenge. It's not, so how do you keep, there's no cheating. It's an open book test. So they present you with this problem, you go on the internet, you go wherever you need to go, get.
I promise you we didn't speak about this before, but that's a perfect segue. Cheating. I mean, let's talk about that and that example. I'm going to share with you 3 different things that I've gotten interested in here. One of them is Google Search for Education. Everybody's heard of the flipped classroom. Give a kid a challenge. Engage the kid in the content. Don't allow the teacher to be the one delivering all the content. How do we engage kids in content? The smartboard is not the way to do it. Okay? When you put a device in every kid's hand, you give them the tool to engage themselves in the content. As educators, we all know. I mean, we want to engage the kids in the content, facilitate instruction, slow down and not as much talking. But here's something fun. Google's doing some neat work. And they posed that problem. It's exactly what you'd said. So what they do is they break up. It's this whole center, Google Education Search. And it's kind of like that. What you're saying is you'll pick a certain level of a challenge. And let's take a beginner here. And you view the lesson. And this is breaking out to many different content areas. I haven't dove all the way into it. But it opens up a Google document. And in fact, it is a lesson that asks a question and has you solve a problem. This is on the beginner level. But there's a whole bunch of them in there and tailored to a lot of different subject areas. It's kind of neat. Again, engaging kids in the content is part of that experience. Let's go back to the presentation. If you get a chance, it's called Google Search Education. So a couple of those themes that came up were concerns 3 times, cheating 2 times, and then we talked about even allowing this sort of stuff. Well, I wanted to share something with you that my good friend David Warlick shared a long time ago. Notice I called David Warlick a friend of mine. I'll tell you why. What are we going to ask kids on tests when our students have these tools in their pockets or on their waist? We shouldn't be concerned about cheating when the teacher's asking pretty amazing questions and engaging kids in the content. So Google's been the place where we've all gone to find everything, right? I remember one time showing, well, if I want to learn about dolphins, I can get 143 million results back in 0.3 seconds. Well, the second skill you got to adopt then is, well, the information literacy piece. How do I become good at sifting through the good stuff and the bad stuff? And then down the road, how do I become a good manager of all this information? And that's a skill. Who's heard of this? Wolfram Alpha. Okay, so I can't begin to explain this. I'm sorry. I just can't. I'm not even going to try. So I'm going to play a short video for you. But it's different from Google. It's got the potential to do a lot more than Google. And if you want to think about cheating, think about math, science, some of the things that you can do with this tool. I'm going to show you really quickly. By the way, I have this app on my iPhone, on my iPad, and so does probably every kid.
Wolfram Alpha is an amazing new tool that's available on the web. It's not a search engine, it's a computational knowledge engine. What does that mean? Well, imagine if you could collect the world's knowledge, things like facts, measurements, equations, history, trends, and calculations, and store them in a big box that's plugged into a brainy supercomputer. That's Wolfram Alpha. It combines knowledge with computational power to give you answers about nearly anything and everything you want to know. When you want to find out about something, such as the nutritional content of your breakfast, Wolfram Alpha is smart enough to understand what you're trying to figure out, and it uses its knowledge to compute the results. Whether you're trying to crack a crossword puzzle, discover scientific facts, or solve an advanced mathematical equation, Wolfram Alpha gives you instant access to expert knowledge whenever you need it. That's Wolfram Alpha in a nutshell. But you might be wondering, how is Wolfram Alpha different from Google? Well, Google searches the web, seeking out web pages that relate to what you typed. From there, for the most part, it's your job to find the information you need. Wolfram Alpha is different. It doesn't search for web pages. Instead, it computes exact answers using its vast and ever-expanding collection of knowledge and allows you to discover so much more.
So which brings me to this next one, which is the next interesting thing. Who's heard of Google's new glasses? This freaks me out. That's a buddy of mine, Rob, by the way, Rob Udovich, who was with Sergey at Google. And this is actually how I learned about this. Stumbled on it in my own social network.
Meet me in front of Strand Books at 2. Oh man, really?
Hey there, guy. Hey there, little guy.
Sweet. Remind me to buy tickets for Monsieur Keynote tonight. Where's the music section? Oh, yes, this is it. Is Paul here yet? Huh. Hey, dude, how's it going?
Want to go check out that new place I was telling you about?
Sure.
This truck's really good.
Hey, just a second. Cool.
Good to see you again.
Thanks, man.
Got a new place in Alphabet City.
See you, dude. Whoa, cool. Take a photo of this. Share it to my circles. Oh, I'm running late. Music, stop.
Hi, what's up?
Hey.
Hey.
You want to say something cool?
Yeah, sure. Is that a ukulele?
Yep. Okay, here goes.
That's beautiful.
So here we have this Google stuff. We got Wolfram Alpha. We got Google Glasses, which is connecting us. Let's bring this back now to social media and what this really means. And although none of those are really social media, I want to talk to you about some of my research and what's coming out of this. The essence of this meeting. What does this technology mean? This social media mean? Well, here are some things that have come up. It's redefining community, redefining leadership, redefining knowledge management. I think that's one of the coolest words ever. I learned that in Fordham, and it just sounds so cool, like knowledge management. Yo, let's have a knowledge exchange tonight. You know, like I went to ASCD, and you know, I said to one of my buddies, I said, "How are we going to exchange all this knowledge when we get back to our people?" Organizational boundaries. Folks, the business world would not survive without expanding their organizational boundaries, I believe. The popular thing to do nowadays is share. And then perhaps it's redefining professional learning for educators. So let's stick with the first one here. It's redefining community. And this picture right here is just saying, you know, knowledge isn't in our heads, it's between us. It's this, it's social. It's us spending time together. It's us sitting by the water cooler. I mean, I think it was John Goodlatte or John Seeley Brown who talked about this back in the 80s. They realized giving the technical people the manuals and sitting behind cubicles all day didn't advance their learning. It was having them get around and socialize. That's how learning occurs. We know that. So let's talk about some communities. I just want to give you an example here. Obviously, we talked about this. The short story of School Leadership 2.0. Mike Keeney and I, as a matter of fact, met right here in this place. You wouldn't be surprised it was at the bar. It was a few years ago, LIASCD, if anybody was here. It was pouring outside. There were literally leaks coming through the ceiling. So I said to myself, well, what would Bill Brennan do? What do we do? I don't want to run to my car and get all wet. So there was a Yankee game on and sat there, watched the game. And this nice man with white hair came over and sat right next to me at a poster board with him. He'd given a presentation. And he sits down next to me and he just says, "Hi, I'm Michael Keeney." I said, "Son of a gun." I'm like, I wanted to bow down. I mean, you know, I've heard this name for so many years. And it was almost a moment of serendipity for me. And it's, you know, there have been a lot of things I want to talk about with that. But Mike and I have become very close. And this community emerged from that. It evolved from that. An idea that he and I had, but it may not have ever happened. Mike and I then ran into each other a few years later on an elevator in a hospital when my daughter was born. Son was born, I'm sorry. You know, we maintained that first tie, and then that second tie came in. It's the relationships we create. It's the ideas we share. It's the resources we bring to the table. School Leadership 2.0 at this point is a learning community. I mean, it is. It's got 5,600 members or something. It's got 15,000 unique visitors each month and 90,000 page views each month. You know, we put up jobs. We have 460 videos up there that we share. Mostly users contribute these videos. And there's a number of groups. I want to point your attention to a group right here, APPR SLOW, Best Practice in Sharing. Dr. Timothy Egan started that group. I can't think of a smarter person. You know, here he is sharing resources. The people that are in this group, there are 66 people, 65 people in this group. I mean, we can't keep up with this stuff all by ourselves. So here's a place to check out. I think Dr. Larry Aronstein runs some sort of leadership. We were talking about last night, you know, getting your first leadership job, you know, interview skills and things like that. So it's just a community. It's not really defined. It's just, hey, come on in, jump in, talk, and get the most out of it that you can. I want to introduce you to another community. This is a website. Aren't those feet beautiful? That's my daughter, Lila. My wife is very much involved with organic living and healthy eating. Can't you tell? I'm waiting for it to take effect. I know there's always an implementation dip with things, you know? So here she is, a passionate person, as we all are, right? We all have a passion. We're talking about redefining community. And she's got a voice, let me tell you. She wants to get this message out there. You know, we got to raise these kids right. We got to, you know, there's certain ways to do it. We got to be careful about what we're giving kids. The toys, the foods, the food dyes. I mean, I can go on and on. I've gotten a doctorate in this at home. So here she is. She starts writing. You know, this little WordPress page she got up and running in about an hour. She's got herself a Facebook page, a Twitter thing going on. It started in the year 2011, right around January, I think. People come to it. They read it. They comment on it. She writes back. It's a community. But let me show you something even more powerful, because I don't view really WordPress as a community per se, as a social media device. It is. But Dawn decided, I'm going to get on Facebook with this. And she built a bigger community. Take a look at this. This is in 1 year. If you looked at that today, that was last week probably, I took that screenshot. I would guarantee you it's over 17,000 likes. She's got 4,643 people talking, sharing ideas. These are moms, these are dads, these are naturopaths, these are doctors, these are chiropractors, they're everything, every walk of life that have an interest in raising kids naturally or organically or looking for ideas. You know? My research is on social capital and virtual learning communities and organizational learning and principles. I'm not going to find the best information by walking into a room of people that maybe know nothing about that. I have to go and find the people that are ready to share those ideas, to push my thinking. And she's done that with her own community. And it's all about the knowledge. Now you know this. You don't have to go to a computer, sit down, and read everything she's got. How many of you have a Facebook page? Okay. And you know, if you have it on your mobile phone, you'll look at it, you'll check it out, you'll see what's new. I mean, honestly, I can't sit there all day and do it. I check it from time to time, sometimes when I'm walking in the hallway, things like that. But I got to tell you, some of my best learning happens there because I'm connected to the smartest people on this planet. They don't care who I am, but I can learn from them, and they're willing to share. And sometimes, I'm going to tell you, it ends up in a phone conversation with them. We talked last night about this. So it's not an audience. It's not this scary, crazy place. It's community. It's a place where we go to learn, to exchange ideas, and you maintain those relationships online. And folks, I think we all agree on this probably. The kids are doing it. The biggest problem is who the heck is teaching them to do it? How many of you are teaching kids how to behave on Facebook, or are we just telling them not what to do? How many of you just wrote cyberbullying policies of DASA? I mean, when do we start being reactive, stop being reactive and be a little proactive in engaging kids in this conversation? There is a serious advantage, a major advantage to being intentional about using social media to advance your own learning. And it carries with you. The social capital you create today, it was almost a slip. The social capital you create today at this meeting might remain with you. You know, you'll stay in touch with people. But the social capital you create with the people online maintains with you all the time. We talked about this already, actually. But there are a lot of misconceptions about social media. And I'm not ignoring it, folks. I'm not, please. I understand bad stuff happens. I've seen it. I've heard it. We all know it. Again, I'd raise the point, who's teaching the kids? They absolutely have the knowledge how to use this stuff. Most of them don't possess the wisdom to do so appropriately. They don't. You know, nobody's teaching them. And the funny thing is this. A couple weeks ago, my son and I took a trip up to Rhode Island to visit my brother, and he wasn't home yet, and he was working a late shift in a hospital. And I said, all right, we'll go find a playground. And then we did. We found the best playground in Rhode Island, somebody told us. There's like only one really good playground, they said, and we found it. But I was having a conversation a couple weeks ago with a principal, part of my study, and he says, Bill, imagine if every principal or every superintendent or every person that makes decisions about playgrounds said, you know what? We can't put playgrounds in schools. Kids are going to fall. They're going to get hurt. It's going to be dangerous. We're going to have lawsuits. We'd have no playgrounds. I would argue it's not very different with social media and that T word, technology, that I don't like so much. I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine. Again, I'm using the word friend. And I don't know, you'll pick up on it why. Karen and I didn't tell you her name yet. She's the United States Department of Education, Director of Educational Technology. She's a pretty important person. I believe she works very closely with Arnie Duncan, and she put out a pretty amazing technology report, 2010. The United States government really took a charge on it. And she shares here, I actually met her a couple years ago in person. She shares a few things, and she's put this out in writing. She's put this out in her report. She's put this out on the web, on YouTube, and all that sort of stuff. The myths of internet filtering. Just read that for a second. How many of you in your school are blocked from sites? You're an assistant superintendent. Sorry, but I know you are. I mean, how does that feel? I spoke to 13 principals over the last few months. And can I tell you that these principals sometimes had to say, Bill, I got to schedule this in the evening because I'm not allowed to use Skype in my office. Are you out of your mind? You're the principal. You're the assistant superintendent. Who's calling the shots here? I don't want to go into that too much, but folks, there's an advantage to using these tools, using them wisely. We have to start doing this. We're leaving our kids behind. We're not giving them the experience they should have. And I'm going to hopefully shed some light on the fact that there's value in professional development here. Think about adding a shot of caffeine to the brain of every teacher in your learning communities. So if this is true, I think I jumped on this already, how do you think teachers feel? Have you ever spoke to a teacher who's working their butt off at night, coming into school to realize that site's blocked, to be told by some person behind a door? Well, you should have checked it 4 or 5 days ago and then requested it. You're out of your mind. You know what? Because if I did that, I wouldn't be doing my job. You know what good teachers do? Good teachers use data, day to day to day. And then they change things up and they try to personalize it. That's hard work. Don't tell me as a teacher that I should have done that. Because I found this awesome clip that I wanted to show my kids, and now because I couldn't, these kids lost out. How do you think students feel? You know, we tell them, turn your phones off. Don't even bring it in. Forget it. Go use it at home. This is a powerful tool, folks. And I said this before. Who's actually teaching our kids how to do it? One of the biggest themes that came up in my research with these principals is that they are taking a risk. They are modeling the way like I've never seen people do. And they're putting themselves out there.
Down one system. Yes. Your message is a powerful one, but we embrace this. I'm there. I need you to go to NISBA. I need you to go to the New York State School Boards Association. It's the school boards who need this message desperately. They're the ones who right now, you know, they are in control. They're afraid. They need this message so desperately because they're the ones who ultimately hold the keys to the kingdom. As soon as they say it's okay, those walls come down. But I need them to give us permission. They won't give us permission.
Well, let's lead that fight. Let's do that. Redefining organizational boundaries. I saw this graphic here, and it led me to think of this idea of PLCs. How many of you have PLCs or teams, grade level teams, subject level teams? Does anybody want to just explain what those are like? Anybody want to just jump in and how those function?
They're teachers getting together, whether it's a grade level or it's articulated, you know, different grade level. Looking at data, looking at, if it's done the right way, they're looking at data to determine who's got the best results in certain areas. They can switch kids up. It's really all about, it's about kids, not about teachers. It's about doing what's best for kids. It's about sharing knowledge, spreading best practice. If it's done right, that's how it should be.
What a super organizational structure. I mean, I really think it is. It's phenomenal. I asked a number of these principals that I spoke with, and I said, well, where do they go to learn? You know, where do they go? Well, they talk together. You know, like at tables. They just sit and talk, you know. There's 5 or 6 people at a table. But where do they go to get ideas? So this idea emerged that connecting through social media creates a constant flow, a stream of new ideas. Some principals reported, I had no idea what I didn't know. Some report that I was in a silo. I didn't know what to do. I have a dirt road coming to my school. I'm the only elementary school in my district, and there's not another one for a while. It was a lifesaver for me. I reached out to my network, my PLN, my personal learning network. So speaking of PLN, I believe it was a question last night, and I won't quiz you on it. But again, my good friend David Warlick really came up with this years ago. And he says it's a personal professional network, involves an individual's topic-oriented goal. My wife had a goal. She wanted to connect people. She wanted to learn. She wanted to learn about organic living. Healthy food. What should we be giving our kids, not be giving our kids? A set of practices and techniques. There's a skill here aimed at attracting and organizing a variety of relevant content sources and stuff. And it's usually around a goal, whether it's student achievement, whether it's learning to raise your kids healthy, or whatever it is. So David Warlick is down in North Carolina, and he's on Twitter. And I want to just talk about this concept, followed versus follow, in a second. So you can follow people on Twitter. They may not follow you back. They're not interested in what you're thinking about, or writing about. But you can follow David Warlick. You can follow anybody you want. And they're going to share stuff. And I'm not particularly interested about the movie you just saw. I'm not particularly interested that, you know, I don't know. The stuff sometimes people say. And quite honestly, why did Twitter have to call Twitter? What a stupid name. I mean, I get it. But isn't that part of the problem? You know, all these Web 2.0 apps have these just bizarro names. So again, we talked to the principals about this, expanding your organizational boundaries. What are you learning about and who are you learning from? In that PLC, essentially you're learning with the 4 or 5 people, maybe 6 people at that table. Maybe you do speak with other grade levels and other subjects, and that's awesome. But how do you bring new ideas into the organization? We're at a conference right now. John Steely Brown would say that that's leading and learning on, or learning on the edge. You're getting out of your comfort zone. You're getting out of your regular area, and perhaps you're going to bring those ideas into the organization. We're all busy folks. How many times do you get out to a conference? A year. I couldn't go to the ISTE conference. ISTE is the International Society of Technology Education, something. And I couldn't go to it. It's hard with 2 young kids and the job. But, gosh, did I get a lot out of that conference. How did I do that? I learned so much from that conference and those people by following that hashtag on Twitter. I didn't do it all the time. I wasn't a little dork sitting here looking at the feed all day long. I'd pull up my phone and I look, what's going on? And I'd see Adam Bello, a local Long Island person, sharing some great stuff. I'd see other people that are presenting, sharing stuff. There was back channeling going on at the conferences. It exposed me to ideas. All those ideas don't stick. And there's a lot of ideas. But sometimes they do. The question is, what do you do with that? You know, and there's a very easy way. Click the share button, save it to Delicious, save it to your email and stuff like that. I'm going to show you something a little bit about that. So in terms of scalability of access, I think what it's really about is expanding your network that you have, that PLC, or your own little learning space as a teacher, to the world. And that's what we've tried to do at School Leadership 2.0. So my wife is trying to do at her blog. That's what I love to see teachers doing, and there are teachers doing it. When we allow them to get on websites like that at school, when we trust them, we got to use that T word. Trust is a big part of this. Most teachers have 1 master's, if not 2. They're professionals. We should trust them. Are there going to be teachers that do silly things? Most likely. But I believe you have a policy for that, right? So what I was trying to get at is these connections, these knowledge exchanges that happen in these spaces really lead to an exposure of ideas that you would never come across. And John Steely Brown in his book Power Pull refers to these as, we're no longer involved with knowledge stocks but knowledge flows. And knowledge stock would be an example of attending your once-a-month PD session. Here you go, I'm going to dump everything into your head. But a knowledge flow is constantly opening up your brain to new ideas and flow it in, and filtering that, by the way. You know, you have to filter that. There's an advantage to this, folks. No matter what you're doing, whether it's in your profession or in another interest that you have, there's an advantage to this. So we expand it through connecting globally. David Warlock and I are friends. This is a very difficult picture to see, but it was taken in about 2008. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and there was a lot of nights where, quite honestly, she'd go to bed at 7 o'clock at night, and I did a lot of learning, you know, at nighttime. And here I was on Twitter or Facebook one night, and David Warlock says, come on and join me in Second Life. How many of you have heard of Second Life? It kind of fell off a little bit. Interesting place. But it's a virtual community with avatars and stuff like that. And Dave says, come and join me. So I said, okay, I got nothing better to do. So this is me. My Second Life name was Will Zabaleta or something. You have to choose these names. And then David Warlock's over here. Folks, I'm sitting somewhere on a shelf or a beanbag over here, and David Warlock and I had an hour-long conversation. Those of you that know David Warlock or have heard him speak at BOCES events know he's a bright man. I mean, and he's got resources like nobody else. Travels the world speaking with people and doing some great work. Him and I shared a long conversation together. He was on his couch in North Carolina. I was sitting in front of him, probably in my kitchen or something. That to me was an aha moment. Every principal I spoke with said there was an aha moment. Like, you still get the chills telling it. Here are some of my other friends. Now I'm going to introduce you to my friends. Now I'm going to introduce you to my best friends. Because they change, just like in real life sometimes. Okay? We've seen this guy before, right? He spoke at a BOCES event. Anybody want to take a shot? Huh? At a Harvard University, wrote some pretty powerful books. Yes, Tony Wagner, Global Achievement Gap. Tony, again, another guy travels the world, great ideas, great research. Facebook, Twitter, we're buddies. He probably doesn't follow me, he doesn't care what I'm doing. But hey, I follow him. And I may not forever. This is John Seely Brown, probably one of the greatest minds in knowledge management. Runs the Deloitte Institute now. Awesome book, again, he shares with me on Facebook and Twitter. Knowledge Flows. We've all seen this guy. Check out his videos. You know they're great. Sir Kenneth Robinson, Finding Your Passion, Getting into Your Element. Again, Twitter and Facebook. He's funny sometimes on Twitter and Facebook. He posts silly stuff. I think it's actually him. It's not like his publishers. One of my new best friends, Don Tapscott. We're going to look at a video in a little bit about that. Okay. But we're gonna pick it up in a second. But great book here, Don Tapscott. We're friends. Real quickly, some of my best friends right now are these people. And they are my best friends because they're the people I really need in my life. I really need to learn from them. Okay? Real quickly, Scott McCloud's Twitter feed. I can look at that, follow that. I can then think about, hey, who's Scott McCloud following? If Scott's pretty smart to me, I wonder who the heck he's following. Talk about getting in people's heads. Redefining knowledge management is what it's about. This is pretty funny. ASCD I did get to go to. It was in Philadelphia this year. Anybody heard of Tweet Up? Okay? You do this old Twitter stuff at the conference, and then you actually go to a bar and hang out and have fun. Right? And it's a tweet up, you meet in person. So you actually get to see these people you've been talking back and forth with all the time. Now, you wonder, there's a lot of stuff. How do you follow Twitter? Well, I don't walk into, by the way, there's no chance in my life I can ever go to happy hour now with 2 kids, but back in the day it used to be fun. And it's not like if I got there at 5 o'clock that I would ask, hey, what are all the conversations from 4 to 5? No, it's not like that. You look at your Twitter feed. What's interesting to you? You go with it. You engage in a conversation or you don't. You got to learn how to manage this stuff. Management's key with hashtags. A bunch of ones. There's a great Common Core one we could talk about later on. There's for every subject. Hootsuite is the most impressive way to manage all this stuff. Well, here's my home feed. Here are my mentions. These are people talking about me. This is CP Chat, the principals chat. This is Ed Chat, probably the biggest educational one out there. Social bookmarking, an awesome tool. I put the playbook here because, well, I can go and check Will Richardson's Delicious files. While I'm working from 7 o'clock to 4 or 5 o'clock every day, Will Richardson's out there mining the infinite wisdom of the whole world, saving stuff. And all I have to do is go into his Delicious account and look at what he's sharing. It's pretty cool because I don't have time to sit there all day and look at stuff. You know what's funny too? A lot of times people ask me how to do things. And sometimes I send back a little video like this. Anybody ever seen this before? If you're a tech person, a lot of times people come to you, oh, how do you do this? How do you do that? Well, you know what? There's a very simple way to figure that out. And kids do this all the time. They go right to Google. Or I'll watch a video on YouTube to learn how to do it. Let me Google that for you. So I put that in there. Click copy link, send the person a link. That's how you find out, you know? It's kind of a neat little tool I like there. Zeit is an intelligent magazine. I don't have time to read newspapers at this point, but I can follow many trends and conversations going back on an iPad. If you have an iPad, download this app, check it out. Okay? You can read selected items that you want to read. You have a choice in that. It's redefining leadership, folks. That's the last part of one of the findings. Where we are now, the big wall, and where we need to be. We know this. It doesn't happen overnight. It's about investing in people. You know, I spoke to one of the most well-known principals in the country right now. He's on the cover of almost every leadership magazine there is. I can't say his name. But he told me, Bill, I'm not looking for buy-in. I'm not. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm looking here to show value. And if you want in, well, jump in. had to figure out a way to integrate some sort of aquatic thing in here. You know, we have a lot of competing priorities, but we have to keep in mind what's most important, and those are certainly the kids. I'm going to just skip over this in the interest of time, but we have to find out which door are we going to go into. You know, which door do we want to open? I can't comment. Elaine knows that. It's you protect anonymity. I just said that word right for the first time. All right, but you have to choose the right door. We have important work here, folks. You know, it's up to us to help kids find their passion, interest, what they want to do. If I could, I'm going to fast forward this real quick and show you. This is, again, my good friend Don Tapscott. He summarizes it extremely well.
And now, once again, the technology genie is out of the bottle, but this time it's different. The printing press gave us access to the written word. The internet enables each of us to be a producer. The printing press gave us access to recorded knowledge. The internet gives us access not just to information and knowledge, but to the intelligence contained in the cranium of other people on a global basis. To me, this is not an information age. It's an age of networked intelligence. It's an age of vast promise, an age of collaboration where the boundaries of our organizations are changing, of transparency where sunlight is disinfecting civilization, an age of sharing and understanding the new power of the commons, and it's an age of empowerment and of freedom. Now, what I'd like to do is, to close, to share with you some research that I've been doing. I've tried to study all kinds of organizations to understand what the future might look like. But I've been studying nature recently. You know, bees come in swarms and fish come in schools. Starlings in the area around Edinburgh, in the moors of England, come in something called a murmuration. And the murmuration refers to the murmuring of the wings of the birds. And throughout the day, the starlings are out over a 20-mile radius, sort of doing their starling thing. And at night, they come together and they create one of the most spectacular things in all of nature. And it's called a murmuration. And scientists that have studied this have said they'd never seen an accident. Now, this thing has a function. It protects the birds. You can see on the right here, there's a predator being chased away by the collective power of the birds. And apparently this is a frightening thing if you're a predator of starlings. And there's leadership, but there's no one leader. Now, is this some kind of fanciful analogy, or could we actually learn something from this? Well, the murmuration functions to accord a number of principles, and they're basically the principles that I've described to you today. This is a huge collaboration. It's an openness. There's a sharing of all kinds of information, not just about location and trajectory and danger and so on, but about food sources. And there's a real sense of interdependence. The individual birds somehow understand that their interests are in the interests of the collective. Perhaps like we should understand that that business can't succeed in a world that's failing. Well, I look at this thing and I get a lot of hope. Think about the kids today in the Arab Spring, and you see something like this that's underway. And imagine, just consider this idea, if you would. What if we could connect ourselves in this world through a vast network of air and glass? Could we go beyond just sharing information and knowledge? Could we start to share our intelligence? Could we create some kind of collective intelligence that goes beyond an individual or a group or a team to create perhaps some kind of consciousness on a global basis? Well, if we could do this, we could attack some big problems in the world. And I look at this thing and I don't know, I get a lot of hope that maybe this smaller, networked, open world that our kids inherit might be a better one. And that this new age of networked intelligence could be an age of promise fulfilled and of peril unrequited. Let's do this. Thank you.
What do you think of that? Isn't that cool? Again, I want to just point out one final thing with that. And folks, I wouldn't have discovered that video if it wasn't for my network, the people I follow. Okay, I would have been in a silo. Think about every teacher not being in a silo. It's a lonely profession in many cases. It's also a free thing, folks. I'm not talking about real money here. Okay, you can subscribe to Twitter for free. It just takes some motivation. Ed Focus is a book club you could read. You want to read a book with a whole bunch of people, go ahead and do it. And a final thought here, 2011, Long Beach had their Quicksilver World Championships for surfing. About a week before, there was not a wave in sight. Wow, great place to have a surfing contest from everybody all over the world. That's Kelly Slater ripping it up here. That same time, I was at the beach with my family. And at the top of the berm is where everybody was sitting, okay? And high tide was about to come in. There was a ground swell kicking up from this surfing contest, but this storm that was on its way, this undercurrent, this pressure. I like to call it a ground swell. And what happened was people parked themselves right up at the berm, and sure enough, what happened? What happens when the tide comes in or the swell starts rolling up? You got to move back, right? Because you're going to get wet. And then you ask your kids to, why don't you dig a hole so the entire ocean goes in that little hole so we don't get wet? Well, you get wet, and then you back up. You know what? Take that boogie board, block our towels. Yeah, good luck, okay? Before you know it, folks, you're up against the wall. Where do we go? This is more or less what I think education is involved with right now. When do we say, let's do this? And in final words here, this is one of the coolest books out there. Hopefully, you know, you've seen this, Our Iceberg is Melting. It's about Fred, a penguin who sees something wrong. He sees something wrong and he notes out that, you know what, our iceberg is melting. It really is. So dip your toe in. You don't have to dive all the way in. Dip your toe in. Just try it out and give it a shot. Have a great conference. Thank you very, very much.